Roohi brings her soul-searching wisdom to this important topic of our spiritual mental health, and you can follow some of her inspirational writing and reflections on her Facebook page, Stepping Stones to Jannah. An instructor for the past 10 years, Roohi conducts halaqat and programs within her community on her platform, Nourish Your Soul. She effectively blends traditional Islamic knowledge with her own professional and personal experience of growing up in the West and giving people a practical approach to learning and living Islam. Roohi was born in London and moved to the United States with her family at a young age. And she graduated with honors from Boston University with we got somebody to assist us?
Sorry.
Put it back on here.
That wasn't working. No.
Is it? Okay. I'll try and stay right here, which is very difficult for those of you who know me. I don't stay still very often. Roohi graduated with honors from Boston University with a bachelor's degree in computer engineering, mashallah, and went on to build a successful career in technology, where she further gained business expertise in sales and marketing. Raised by conscientious parents with Islam as the primary focus, she was committed to building a foundation within her own home, and particularly for her children. That became the driving force more than 15 years ago that led her to formally study Arabic and the Islamic sciences at a higher level, with a number of Islamic institutes ongoing for several years, in particular with Al-Maghrib and prophetic guidance. She began actively volunteering in the Islamic schools and masjid communities and has been participating in teaching since that time. Roohi is currently enrolled in the Bridge to Master's diploma, working towards a master's degree in Islamic studies with the Islamic Online University in Qatar. What she'll be talking about today is what it means to be a Muslim struggling with mental health, and how one's connection with Allah is both a powerful spiritual and practical means to wellness. Please welcome my sister and your sister, Roohi Tahir.
I'm going to hope I don't have to touch this, but I guess it's not. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, I am very honored to be a part of this program, such an important and wonderful topic. And, I want to start by saying that from the point of view and perspective of our deen, there is actually a lot that we can say about the challenges that we face to our emotional and mental well-being. But there's also a lot we can say about the solutions to get through them successfully. In the short time that I have with you, I just wanted to focus in and highlight 3 points. And I apologize that my voice is a little off. If I start coughing, just ignore me. But 3 points I want to highlight. These are actually tremendous gifts from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala to us, to each of us, that you and I have already been given. Can't hear me? Okay. I'm sorry I can't stretch my voice a lot more. Is this better? Okay. All right. So as I was saying, I'd like to highlight 3 points for us as takeaways. These are gifts, tremendous gifts that we have from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala to each of us. And they're gifts because in each of these 3 things, we find comfort, we find empowerment in terms of how to effectively deal with the challenge we're facing, whether it be anxiety, whether it be depression, any form of mental illness or disorder or illness or challenge for that matter. And we find the necessary tools to nurture and to actually maintain our well-being going forward. The first of these I'll start with is the acknowledgement from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala Himself. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala knows exactly what you're going through. And whatever it is that you or I at some stage in our lives, whether we're feeling it now, we're experiencing it today, whatever it is that you are going through, it's real. He acknowledges that it is real, it is valid, and you are not alone. There may be people around you, as we're hearing and we know is the concern, who may be completely oblivious to what you're going through, what you're having to struggle with. And even if they know, maybe they're not the most supportive. And worse yet, maybe they're judgmental. It's one thing to not understand something, but it's one thing to pass judgment. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that. He sees exactly and is well aware of what you are going through. He knows the pain and the struggle, and He knows your sincerity with which you are calling upon Him. Even as you may feel, I'm falling, I'm failing, I'm not able to do this, I'm not able to pray properly, I'm not able to go to the masjid to fast, the things that we've just been hearing about. Allah knows you better than yourself, and He hasn't abandoned you. In fact, it is with Allah that we find the solutions to a better you, and that's what this is about. Allah wants you to come through it better than where you were before, because He loves you. Allah says in the Qur'an about the believers in numerous places, a dozen or more, فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ, that there will be no fear upon them, nor will they grieve. I love this statement. It's one of my favorite statements. Every time I read Qur'an and I come to this, I just have to stop. I want you to think for a moment how this makes you feel when you hear these words, because we can all relate to it, right? Doesn't matter what it is we're facing. Fear and grief are two pillars. This entire statement actually captures something that contains our entire life in it. If you think about it, fear is something that we are held back by because we're anticipating something that hasn't happened yet. And grief is something where we are trapped within the pain that just keeps coming back because it's happened in the past. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is reassuring the believers, you and me, that a day will come and a time will come when there will be no more fear. There will be no more grief. And there will be no more pain. That it is a test in this world. And yes, what you're going through is real. It may happen at times, at different stages of life. But it's temporary. Alhamdulillah, it's temporary. And there are amazing examples in the Qur'an. Allah teaches us where He has actually tested through very, very difficult, far more devastating circumstances than many of us have lived, perhaps even collectively. The people that are closest to Him, the most noble, the most righteous, those that we look up to, the messengers of Allah alayhimus salam. Can we say there are people who are better Muslims? They have gone through periods of time in their lives, maybe even long periods of time, actually, in many cases, long periods of time, where there's been darkness, and there's been despair and loss and grief and pain. We can all relate to Yaqub alayhi salam grieving over the separation of his beloved son with his beloved son Yusuf alayhi salam. And we know that was over so many years. And when he says in the Qur'an, إِنَّمَا أَشْكُ بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ, that only do I complain of my deep sorrow and grief to Allah. We can relate to that. We feel as human beings we can connect. These stories are not just stories, they're examples of real live human beings who face challenges that have affected their state of mind, their behavior, the outcome. The goal for us is to take from them. The Prophet ﷺ and many of the messengers who came before him, if you look through their lives, there's a collection of situations where there's, times that are desperate. They have experienced tremendous challenges. All of these situations, be it loss of life, be it your own family turning on you, be it your community turning you out, slander, people accusing you, all of these things, yet, what do we know about the Prophet ﷺ? That he would smile. Always smiling. Why? Because Inna Allah ma'ana, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us. He knew that, he lived that. That's where iman and inner strength and faith comes from. This is what teaches us how to cope, how to work with the challenge, how to get through it effectively, and how to deal with and be with other people. Look at the compassion and the empathy with which he dealt with others around him, no matter what they are going through. And clearly something that we can all learn from. So these examples teach us that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends a trial, it is not a reflection or a level of one's iman that we have a right to judge when we see somebody suffering with a form of mental illness, just as we wouldn't with any illness or any struggle in life that they're facing. These people, alayhimus salam, were the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is actually the means by which Allah raises the rank of the believer. It is an opportunity for you to get closer to Allah. That's what He wants. And that brings me to the second point. So the first point is the acknowledgement from Allah. The second point is that you have the roadmap. That we know life is a test. It's all about your response. And we don't say these words lightly. These are actually meant to give us the tools that we need to be able to navigate ourselves back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we hit the road bumps, when the turns come in the road. And the biggest blessing we have from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the biggest gifts we have are what? The Qur'an and the Sunnah. What Yvonne was just talking about, you can relate all of the things she said back to what? Just live the Sunnah in the way we eat. So this is the roadmap. We spend time and focus on, when we're going through difficulties in life, first of all, we think we're being tested when there's a calamity. But in actuality, the test is all the time. Even in the good things, even in the things that are blessings for us, we're being tested. Allah wants to see your response. And Allah has told us clearly, you will be tested. That's part of being a human. That's part of being a Muslim. And what defines us as Muslims is our choice to respond in a certain way that will please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in that response, we learn through this that our deen, actually, Islam, is all about solutions. When you have a challenge you're facing, when you have a question about something, go look for the answer in the manual. The Qur'an and the Sunnah is really our life's manual. And we spend time focusing on, why did this happen to me? What's the real cause behind it? And alhamdulillah, sometimes we have the answers to that. But many times we know there are huge factors, many factors, multiple factors at work, and we don't always get the answers to that. But one thing we do know is there's a response that's expected. That's where our focus should be. And we learn that Islam is about hope. We learn that in Islam, it's very clear that when there's a challenge, when there's an illness, with every illness, as the Prophet has taught us, there is a cure. There's always a cure. But what is our job? It's to take the prescription. We have the prescription, we all have it, we just don't always follow it. And that's what we need to do. It's really about our connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and each of us needs to ask ourselves, what is my connection to Allah? How do we connect to Allah? He speaks to us through the Qur'an. How do we connect? I can only just list them briefly in the interest of time, but dua, first and foremost, we seek from Allah. We make dua with certainty as we've been taught, because Allah answers the one who calls on Him. As Ibrahim alayhi salam prayed, وَإِذَا مَرِضْتُ فَهُوَ يَشْفِينِ. When I am sick, it is He who cures me. Except He said, وَإِذَا مَرِضْتُ, in the past tense, when I was sick. Meaning, look at the optimism. Look at the hope. I'm hoping it's not going to happen again, and it did, and it's behind me because I asked Allah for the cure. Alhamdulillah. This should be our attitude. When we're praying, salah is the biggest of connections to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To whatever capacity, make dua as much as you can in sujood. Leave your troubles with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and see how light and burdens come off your shoulders and see how light you feel. It is in the adhkar of the day, morning and evening. The du'as that the Prophet ﷺ has prescribed to us to use to fortify ourselves literally. In them are beautiful supplications of protection and well-being for the dunya as well as for the akhirah. This is what we should be in the habit of doing in order to maintain our well-being going forward. And of course there's istighfar, seeking forgiveness. That applies to all of us. And spending, sadaqah, charity, all of these are the means that Allah is giving us. I'm just listing a handful of things by which calamities can be lifted, illness can be cured, blessings can be availed, pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reward and well-being. All of these are tied to these wonderful things we can do. And of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not burden any soul with more than he or she is capable of handling. So whatever test it is that has come your way, know that it is designed for you. And there's a purpose behind it to bring you through it better. And that you are capable of handling it. In and of itself, that should be a means of relief to us. And there will be good and bad days. And we all know this. When we struggle with something, it becomes really hard sometimes to even motivate yourself to get up. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there and we should hold on to him. Shaitan may come, and this is a factor we should be aware of that's part of the test, to distance you from Allah, to make you, to actually take advantage of your insecurities and your pain. And this is a time when people have the instinct to run away from Allah. And that's what he wants. He wants you to despair. He wants you to fall into doubt. And you fortify yourself by running to Allah and not from him. And this brings me to the last and final point, which is that it's really the answer to the question, how do I maintain stability? How do I have hope on an ongoing basis? How do I live my life in what I deem to be normal ways? Or whatever normal is for you, because it's different for everybody. When each day is unpredictable, what I'm going through, nobody understands. It's up and down, and some days I feel like I can't do anything. We all know these situations because whether you're in it today or not, you know people who are going through it. You've been through it. This is not uncommon. And when you're at your deepest, darkest, you don't know how to and where to find that stability and where to go on. The answer to that is in tawakkul and patience. Two very, very big and deep concepts in Islam that we would really just need a whole nother day for. But tawakkul basically is to trust wholeheartedly in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلَ اللَّهِ فَهُوَ يَصْبُرُ. That the one who places his trust in Allah, then he is sufficient for him. He's enough. Allah is enough for him. And to rely completely on Allah. But what I want to share very briefly about these two things, patience and tawakkul, is that they need to be lived in a very active and practical way. There are aspects to this that sometimes we just logically think, I believe this in my heart, and I'll just wait for Allah to change my situation. But actually, it's about calling on Allah with certainty that he will change my situation, bring me through, cure me, while I stay engaged in my life's work. And I do and strive to do the things that will please Allah to live my life the best of my ability. That's how you put it in action. So while you see in front of you, it might look dark. It might look like I only see thorny bushes. I don't see the forest from the trees. I don't see the clearing on the other side. It's there. Reality actually exists beyond our perception. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how to get you through, and he will if you trust him. But you have to take some steps forward yourself and start moving. in that direction. That's exactly what it took for Ibrahim alayhi salam. He trusted in Allah when he was thrown in the fire, and then Allah made it cool for him and saved him in the middle of the storm. The eye of the storm sometimes is the safest place. And if you're holding Allah, it's always the safest place. And that's what happened with Nuh alayhi salam, that a raging ocean, yet he can be kept safe. This is the connection and trust and patience. Talk about patience with Nuh alayhi salam, right? 950 years odd. So we have to strive, keep moving, and inshallah, the answers will come. Live your life, surround yourself with the right kind of company that will positively reinforce these beautiful reminders from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. This is what keeps us connected as well. It's as important. And I'll just close by saying that our deen provides us with the most powerful tools. This is the actual toolbox itself. Everything else that we have in the way of resources around us, we add to this toolbox. So it is absolutely appropriate, necessary to try to remove harm in whatever way we can, using all the halal means we have available to us, the medical resources, the technology, the people who are specialists, the counseling, the community, everything else, family, of course, comes into play. But the foundation of it all, that's what I'm really here to talk about, and that's what this is about, is that it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It begins with Allah, it ends with Allah, because ultimately He knows you, He created you, He knows you better than yourself, and He is the one who will bring the cure, and the only one able to bring the cure. And our job is to respond with iman, faith, and gratitude, to be grateful through all of this. And those two things are realized by utilizing these tools and this guidance. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised us, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا, that with every difficulty there is ease. And that should bring us relief and hope and contentment that inshallah everything will be good. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to use this guidance in a way that is pleasing to Him, to benefit ourselves and others, and may He grant relief and shifa to all those in need, no matter what they're struggling with, whether it be mental illness, whether it be a physiological illness, whatever it may be, whatever their challenges that they're facing. And may He make us as a community of people who can have the compassion and ihsan in excellence in doing what we need to do for each other to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and bring each of us closer to Allah. And may He keep us all in His protection. Jazakumullah khairan for your time.
Jazakallah khair. I think we can all use some uplifting, and I think if we take some of these points, share them with people who aren't here, because these are the types of reminders that, mashallah, Roohi, Yvonne, each and every person has given you some gems to take away from our talk today and implement into our daily lives, inshallah.